In recent days, Donald Trump appears to be walking back his hardline torture policy. In the past, he advocated waterboarding terror suspects as well as targeting the families of suspects, which both violate international law. John Dickerson asked him to clarify his position on Sunday's Face the Nation.
I would like to strengthen the laws so that we can better compete. You know, it's very tough to beat enemies that don't have any restrictions, all right? We have these massive restrictions. Now, I will always abide by the law, but I would like to have the law expanded.
General Michael Hayden is the former director of the Central Intelligence Agency and the National Security Agency. He said the military would not follow Trump on the order of waterboarding and on the killing of terrorists' families. He's also the author of the new book, Playing to the Edge: American Intelligence in the Age of Terror. Earlier, I asked him about Trump's position.
I'm certainly happy that he walked it back. I mean, what he had been saying was illegal, immoral, and frankly, operationally unsound. And so I'm heartened that he actually issued a statement saying that he would follow the laws of armed conflict. I'd be more heartened if he actually said it publicly and embraced that reality. And the question I have to ask Elaine, what was the worldview that motivated him to say those kinds of things in the first place, that we were going to go after non-combatants?
General, to follow on to that, earlier this month, some of your former colleagues, Republican national security experts, spelled out in a scathing open letter to Donald Trump why they feel he is unfit to be president. Among other things, the letter says Trump is, quote, fundamentally dishonest and that his vision of American influence and power in the world is wildly inconsistent and unmoored in principle. You were not one of the signatories to that letter, and I'm just curious why.
Yeah, very simple and straightforward, Elaine. Our dialogue here is part of my book tour, and I thought that my signing on would be viewed by some as having been done for commercial advantage, and I didn't want to cheapen the authenticity or the impact of the letter, but I strongly agree with what was written there.
What do you think is the most dangerous element that's spelled out in that letter?
Well, it talks about a foreign policy that does seem to be detached from reality. I mean, look, I'll just pick one. All right, we have an enemy in jihadism that believes at its base, its recruiting principle is that there is undying enmity between the world of Islam and the West. And when you have a presidential candidate in the United States saying his idea is that we're going to close off our country to all the adherents to that religion, that just lives their recruiting video. It actually motivates the opposition, gives authenticity to the opposition. And frankly, Elaine, the punchline there is he doesn't have to become president for that to harm American security. It's already harmed American security.
On Apple's fight with the FBI over unlocking the San Bernardino terrorist iPhone, you say that Apple should not create a universal backdoor. So specifically, right, what do you think the limit is on how far tech companies need to go in assisting law enforcement with a valid warrant?
I'm not opposed to this request because it's wrong or immoral or illegal. Elaine, I just think it's unwise. What it is we're asking Apple to do is to create something they've not created before and which would be a tool to weaken the overall system of encryption they have on your iPhone and mine. Jim Clapper is the director of national intelligence. For the last 2 or 3 years, he said the most serious threat to American security is the cyber threat. In my book, Elaine, I try to point out that this is just a sea of gray. You're always making hard choices and you're always making trade-offs. I think the trade-off here is, do you really want to weaken cybersecurity even for the legitimate law enforcement and counterterrorism questions over here? And right now, I'm shading towards the Apple argument. I don't think we want to do that.
Let's talk about your book. In it, you deal out a very strong critique of the Obama administration's failure, as you see it, to defend NSA activities. And specifically, you went on to write about Edward Snowden, saying that his revelations were, quote, the greatest hemorrhaging of legitimate American secrets in the history of the Republic. But you also say not too long after that they were a gift. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, what Snowden did was to accelerate a necessary conversation. He also distorted it, but he accelerated a necessary conversation which frankly, Elaine, I spend about the last third of my book trying to pull all of the strands together so that we all can speak more intelligently about this, about these trade-offs that, as I said, permeate the book and which we still have to make. With regard to the Obama administration, I was actually on your network on one of your prominent shows, and after I got all done defending NSA, your man turned to me and said, Mike, I appreciate your coming in, but why are you here? Why is this program, supported by the Obama administration, being defended by folks from the Bush administration? Where are the Obama guys? And that was fundamentally my complaint, Elaine.
All right. So, General Hayden, just some final thoughts here. As we look ahead at the 2016 cycle, I mean, I started off asking you about some of the rhetoric that we've seen. What is your concern if there is a terrorist attack in this country or an attack against American interests overseas? What concerns do you have about the way in which this conversation about privacy versus security is going to move forward?
Thank you, Elaine. That's a great question. You know, in the book, I say something along the lines of my old tribe, the intelligence community, needs to be a bit more transparent, needs to be talking to folks like you before we are accused of doing something. In other words, when folks are calm. We need to have this conversation, Elaine, privacy, security, liberty, safety. By the way, all those things are virtues. None of them are vices. We need to have this balancing conversation before such an attack takes place, because after an attack takes place, Elaine, we don't have a calm conversation. In other words, I fear if my old guys fail, we have a successful attack, we will not only have a blow against American security, by the way we react as a nation, we will have a blow against American liberty as well.
All right. General Michael Hayden, thank you so much for your time, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.